Welcome to Divorce in North Carolina. Today we will be discussing equitable distribution of property in North Carolina. Ever wonder who really gets the house in a North Carolina divorce? The answer might surprise you. It's not as simple as you might think, and it's definitely not a game of rock, paper, scissors. Instead, it's a complex process governed by a set of laws specific to the state of North Carolina. The concept at the heart of these laws is equitable distribution. Now, don't let that term intimidate you. It's just a fancy way of saying that the court aims to divide marital property fairly, but not necessarily equally, between divorcing spouses. And when we say marital property, we mean all the assets and debts that the couple has acquired during the marriage. This could include the family home, cars, furniture, bank accounts, retirement accounts, and even debts like mortgages and credit card balances. So who really gets the house in a North Carolina divorce? Well, it depends. It's not a given that the spouse who holds the title to the house or the one who paid for it gets to keep. The court considers a variety of factors in its decision. These might include each spouse's income, the duration of the marriage, the age and health of each spouse, and the needs of any children involved. Remember, the court's goal isn't to punish one spouse or reward the other. It's about achieving a fair distribution of assets and debts. And sometimes that might mean that the house has to be sold and the proceeds divided between the spouses. In the next few minutes, we'll delve deeper into the North Carolina law on equitable distribution. We'll discuss how it's applied, the factors that influence it, and some common misconceptions about it. We'll also offer some practical tips on navigating the process. Divorce can be a difficult and stressful process, but understanding the legal framework can make it a little easier to navigate. So stay tuned to unravel the mystery of equity distribution in North Carolina divorce cases. So, what is equitable distribution? It's a term you'll hear a lot when talking about divorce in North Carolina. Let's break it down. Equitable means just or fair, and distribution refers to the way marital assets, and yes, debts too, are divided between the parties involved. So when we talk about equitable distribution, we're talking about the fair division of marital property. But it's important to remember, fair doesn't always mean equal. In North Carolina, the courts aim for an equitable distribution of marital assets. But how do they determine what's equitable? Well, it's not a simple mathematical calculation. Instead, it's a complex process that considers a variety of factors. These factors can include the duration of the marriage, the age and health of the parties, the need of a parent with custody of a child to occupy the marital home, and the income and assets of each party, among other things. The courts also consider the contributions of each spouse to the acquisition, preservation, or appreciation of the marital property. This includes the contributions of a spouse as a homemaker. Yes, you heard that right. The non-monetary contributions to a marriage are considered just as valuable as the monetary ones. But what about that house you both bought together, or that retirement account you've been contributing to for years? These are considered marital property, and they're part of the equitable distribution. However, separate property, that's property one spouse owned before the marriage or received as a gift or inheritance during the marriage, is usually not part of the distribution. So that's the gist of equitable distribution in North Carolina. It's a way to ensure that the division of marital property in a divorce is done in a way that is fair and just. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but rather a careful consideration of various factors to achieve a balanced outcome. Now that we understand the concept, let's delve deeper into how it plays out in real cases. You might ask, what factors influence equitable distribution in North Carolina? Well, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer, but let's dive into some of the main elements that may sway the scales. At the top of the list is the duration of the marriage. The length of time a couple has been married can significantly influence the distribution of assets. In general, the longer the marriage, the more entwined the couple's financial affairs become, which can make the division of property more complex and potentially more balanced. Next up, we have the income and property each party brought into the marriage. If one spouse entered the marriage with considerably more assets than the other, this could have an impact on how assets are divided upon divorce. The court may consider premarital assets and income when determining an equitable distribution. The standard of living established during the marriage is another crucial factor. The court tries to ensure that both parties can maintain a similar lifestyle after the divorce, which can influence the division of assets. If one spouse has been the primary breadwinner while the other took care of the home, the court may allocate more assets to the spouse who has fewer income opportunities. Other factors considered include each party's physical and mental health, their ages, and their individual earning capacities. If one spouse has a high-paying job while the other has been out of the workforce for years, the court may distribute the assets in a way that allows the lower-earning spouse to get back on their feet. Lastly, the court also considers any direct contributions made by one spouse to help the other advance their career or education. So, if one spouse put their career on hold to support the other's professional growth, this sacrifice would be taken into account. In a nutshell, equitable distribution doesn't necessarily mean a 50-50 split. It's a complex process that takes into account various factors to ensure a fair and just division of assets. These factors play a vital role in deciding who gets what in a divorce. But when it comes to the house, how does equitable distribution work? Well, it's not as straightforward as you might think. In North Carolina, the marital home is often the most significant asset that couples have to divide. It's also an asset laden with emotional value, which can make the process even more complex. Now, one possible solution is for one spouse to buy out the other's share. This often happens when one party wishes to keep the house, perhaps for the sake of continuity for children, or because of personal attachment. In this case, the spouse retaining the house would need to compensate the other for their share of the home's value, usually by giving up their claim on other marital assets. Another possibility is selling the house and splitting the proceeds. This option is often chosen when neither spouse wants to or can afford to keep the house, or when the couple simply can't agree on who should stay. The proceeds from the sale are then divided between the spouses, usually in accordance with the ratio set by the court. A third scenario is where one spouse continues to live in the house under certain conditions. This is sometimes seen where there are minor children involved, and the court decides it would be in their best interest for them to remain in the family home. The spouse who stays in the house might then be required to pay rent to the other, or the value of the house might be offset against other assets when the time comes for a final distribution. But remember, every case is unique. What works for one couple might not work for another. The court considers numerous factors when deciding on equitable distribution, and the fate of the marital home is one of the most complex and emotionally charged aspects of this process. Indeed, the fate of the house in a divorce is not a simple matter. There are many misconceptions about equity distribution. Let's debunk a few. First off, there's a pervasive belief that the wife always gets the house. This is far from accurate. North Carolina law follows the principle of equitable distribution, which means the division of assets is based on what is fair and equitable, not based on gender. The court takes into account a variety of factors such as the duration of the marriage, the age and health of the spouses and their respective incomes, among others. So, the house may go to either spouse, or it may be sold and the proceeds divided. Another common myth is, property acquired before marriage is not subject to division. Many people believe that if they bought a property before they got married, it's solely theirs. While it's true that separate property, that which was owned prior to the marriage or acquired by gift or inheritance, is usually not divided, there are exceptions. If the property increased in value during the marriage due to the efforts of either spouse, that increased value may be subject to division. Or if marital funds were used to enhance or maintain the property, that could also make it divisible. Then there's the belief that equity distribution means a 50-50 split. This is another misconception. Equitable doesn't necessarily mean equal. The court aims for a fair distribution, which might not always be an even split. For instance, if one spouse has a significantly higher income or earning potential, the other spouse might receive more than half of the marital property to achieve an equitable result. Lastly, some people think equity distribution only applies to big-ticket items like houses or cars. In reality, it applies to all marital property, which can include bank accounts, retirement funds, businesses, and even debts. Knowing the facts helps you navigate the complicated terrain of divorce. Equitable distribution can be complex, but here are some practical tips to navigate it. First and foremost, hire a competent lawyer. While you may feel like you can manage the process on your own, having a knowledgeable professional on your side can make a world of difference. They can help you understand the legal jargon, guide you through the legal process, and advocate for your best interest. Next, keep comprehensive records of all assets and debts. It's crucial to have a clear picture of your financial situation. This entails documenting every asset, whether it's a house, a car, a retirement account, or a collection of antique coins. Similarly, record every debt, be it a mortgage, a car loan, or credit card bills. This will provide a fair and accurate basis for distribution. Another practical tip is to be open to negotiation. Equitable distribution doesn't necessarily mean an equal 50-50 split. It's about fairness. If you and your spouse can agree on a distribution that feels fair to both of you, it can save time, money, and stress. This could involve trading off certain assets or agreeing on a payment plan to settle any outstanding debts. Don't forget to consider tax implications. Certain assets may come with hefty tax bills, while others may offer tax benefits. Consult with a tax professional to understand these potential impacts. Lastly, keep your emotions in check. It's easy to let emotions cloud your judgment during a divorce. However, it's important to approach equitable distribution with a clear and level head. Making decisions out of spite or anger can lead to regret down the road. Remember, equitable distribution is not about winning or losing. It's about reaching a fair outcome that allows both parties to move forward. With these tips in mind, you can navigate the process with confidence and clarity. With the right approach, the process of equitable distribution can be less daunting. Let's sum up the key points about equitable distribution in North Carolina divorce cases. Firstly, remember, equitable distribution doesn't mean equal, it means fair. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, meaning that the courts divide marital property in a manner that is fair and just, not necessarily equal. So don't assume that everything will be split 50-50. Secondly, the court considers a multitude of factors when deciding on equitable distribution. These can include the duration of the marriage, the age and health of both parties, income, property and debts, and any direct contributions to a spouse's education or earning capacity. It's important to realize that the court's decisions are largely influenced by these factors. Thirdly, not all property is considered marital property. Only property acquired during the marriage and before the date of separation is considered. Individual gifts, inheritances, and property owned before the marriage are usually considered separate property and are not subject to division. So it's crucial to distinguish between marital and separate property. Fourthly, don't underestimate the importance of financial documentation. Documents like bank statements, tax returns, and receipts can provide vital evidence when it comes to dividing assets. So make sure you have all your financial records in order. Fifthly, remember that negotiation plays a significant role in equitable distribution. Parties can agree on how to divide their property outside of court. If they can't agree, the court will decide for them. So it's often in your best interest to try to reach an agreement with your spouse. Lastly, the house doesn't always go to the spouse who has custody of the children. While the custodial parent often gets to live in the house while the children are still minors, this isn't a hard and fast rule. The court will consider what's in the best interest of the children. Remember, every case is unique, and understanding your rights is key to ensuring a fair outcome. Divorce is never easy, but understanding equity distribution can ease the process. It's like navigating through a maze. Without a map, you might find yourself circling the same issues, lost and confused. But with a clear understanding of how equity distribution works, you can find your way out more smoothly and confidently. The law may seem like a tangled web, but it's there to ensure fairness and justice. It takes into account various factors from the duration of the marriage to the contributions of each party, and it aims to divide marital property equitably, not necessarily equally. Seeking professional help is crucial. Lawyers and financial advisors can provide invaluable guidance and help you make informed decisions. They can help you avoid common pitfalls and ensure your rights are protected. Share this video with those who might find it beneficial. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as life-changing as divorce. Stay informed, stay strong. #divorces, ints, #separate property, #marital, property, #foreclosure, #property, division, #narcissist, #still standing, #legal, separation, #divorce coach, #divorce process part 1, #6, steps to take, #inherited property, #mediation, #who gets the house, #equitable distribution, #just got divorce papers.